What is happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Park Lane Podcast, episode number 98. It is just me and Dave tonight, but we have a lot to discuss, and tonight's show is slightly different. Tonight's show is a call-in show, so what that means is click the link in the YouTube description, have your camera on, and have your say on tonight's or today's game. So all you got to do is click the link, tune in, and have your say on today's game. We'll have a little shout out to everybody that's in the chat. Jay said, good evening. He's also said, we looked good first half. And as soon as Arsenal scored, we just didn't look like we were going to get in, going to score. Some of the subs like Werner aren't really players that can change the game. And that is interesting, Jay, because we will talk about substitutions throughout the game. Ronnie has said, good, no way, slow, boring football. Of course, Johnny is in the house and said hello.
Wasn't here last week, though, was he?
Exactly. And Matty Kushner has said big up to you, Matty, as well. Good to have you back on board. Dave, out of the way of football, how are you doing?
Out of the way of football, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Had a family bereavement last week, so I've been in Ireland for a few days, but I'm back now. Yeah, mate, and obviously it was a load of dog shit today.
Yeah, there is a lot to talk about today, to be fair, mate, and I hope you're feeling okay after the last week. But let's talk about pre-match, because pre-match there was a lot of hype over this game, and to be fair, I was a little bit disappointed with how the mainstream media had decided to portray Arsenal's chances in this game, because I read a statement from the Guardian that said this is Mikel Arteta's biggest test as Arsenal manager. And I just thought, it's always Arsenal, isn't it? It's not always this is a great chance for Spurs to try and get one over on their rivals. It's, two players out of their midfield are missing. And this is poor Mikel Arteta. This is his biggest test as manager.
Yeah, and it's not so bad when you can bring Raheem Sterling and Gabriel Jesus off the bench, is it? So you're clearly not struggling that much. And look, I'll be honest with you. It was a good opportunity for us today. They're missing Odegaard and Rice. It's a great chance for us to win the game. And overall, I thought we did dominate that midfield. With Bentancur, I said that Bentancur would pull the strings on last week's show. I think you said the same, Luke.
Yeah.
And we were right about that. It was just more of a case of poor little Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? They got a couple of injuries. I remember us last season having about 9 players out. At one time. It was ridiculous. We were ravaged by injury. So, I mean, it's just the way they portray it, isn't it? Like his underdog story. It's not an underdog story anymore. They've been up there challenging consistently for 3 years. They should have won the league 2 of those years, last year and the year before, when they bottled it. And they've come to us today and they've nicked the result. That's pretty much what it is. They've nicked the result. They didn't deserve to win. They came to not lose today. And that's the reality of it.
100%. And do you know what? I was going to get into this really late on in the show because I felt like it was an important task to talk about. But one of the things Johnny just said right here, which is really, really important, because I wrote it down in my stats, was that Arteta finishes 8th twice, and then he excelled. Question is, do you have the balls to keep him for 3 years like Arteta did? If I read Arteta's stats, it was 8th, 5th, and then second and second. So, are we a reactionary fan base in the point in which, we're looking at a 5th place last season and now we've lost of North London Derby 4 games into a season and people are calling for the manager to be sacked? Or are we really going to talk about this rebuild when we talk about Arteta finished 8th and 8th? And I know we don't like to compare, but today is a North London Derby game.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I've come on with some stats as well, mate. I am an Ange fan. I've always been an Ange fan. I banged that drum a long time ago with you, Luke, and I do still believe in him, but I am losing patience. The reason I'm losing patience is we have won 4 out of the last 22 games. Our record against the top 6 is pitiful. Since Ange has been in charge, we've not beaten West Ham, Chelsea, or Arsenal. Our set-piece record is diabolical, and he refuses to hire a set-piece coach. The way he plays is one way and one way only. He doesn't have a plan B. Doesn't have an alternate system. It's that way and that way only. Teams have figured out how we play. I mean, the football, I don't think is as good as it was last season. I thought we played better last season. Some of the players just aren't good enough for what he wants. Even the players he's signed, Brennan Johnson, for example, he's not good enough for how Ange wants to play. We can't finish our dinner. We can't create any chance, like any clear-cut, real open chances. Yeah, the high pressure that we make does create mistakes, and we had a couple of chances from mistakes today. But the problem I have is Ange comes out in his press conferences after the game, and he spins the same old narrative. If this was Antonio Conte or Jose Mourinho, who had won 4 games in 22, and our performances, so our record over the last 10 games would have us 17th in the league, they'd be screaming from everywhere to get them out. They need to go. Because Ange says, mate, and he's a good guy, everyone likes him, not much gets said. So I don't think we're a reactionary fan base. I think the reality of it is Matt's just said it, he's so naive when it comes to being a Premier League manager. This isn't Scotland. You can't roll over teams like Celtic do. This is the best league in the world for a reason. Every team is competitive. I'm not saying I want to get rid of him to have another rebuild right now, but what I am saying is he has to adapt himself. You can't, like I said, I put out a tweet earlier saying, the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We're not going to get different results. The last 10 games, like I said to you, if we played the last 10 games and they were this season, we would be sitting 17th. That's sackable. No matter what you say, that's sackable. So his reign is reminding me of Andre Villas-Boas. Lots of possession, but no substance, and a weak defense. Because that's what AVB had. His record as a manager, as Ange's, is now worse than Tim Sherwood's. So I don't think we're reactionary. I think that people are right to ask these questions. It's a tough job. It's a tough rebuild. But when you are hearing stuff in the summer, like Lucas Bergvall and Archie Gray have impressed so much in pre-season that we don't need to sign another midfielder, and then they don't feature, during the first few games of the season, or barely feature, you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, well, we spent all this money, but we signed one player for the starting 11 in Solanke. So there's lots of questions, and there's not enough answers being given to those questions.
Yeah, I get that, and I I respect your opinion 100%. But I look at it from Johnny's perspective, right? Johnny may be an Arsenal fan, but this is a prime example of a rebuild, and a rebuild whereby a management system believes in what they have paid for. 8th twice, 5th, and then second. Maybe we got lucky under Ange first season. Maybe 5th was above our station. Maybe it wasn't where we deserved to be. I don't know the answer to that. But the other answer is, I don't think that, and I know you don't either, but sacking him or putting him under so much pressure at this stage is not correct. But I also agree with you. I said last week that, in pinnacle games, in games whereby we need to get results and we need to, do something and show up, we don't seem to have shown up. And that is a big problem. I was arguing with somebody on Twitter today, and does a rebuild necessarily mean that, or what happens in the case whereby, Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall become worldies, right?
Yeah.
Is Ange Postecoglou going to be there as manager? Well, I don't know, right? But at the same point, my argument is, when you're working in a job, you don't only work so that it's successful while you're there, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because you don't know when you're going to leave. And so that, I suppose, is the big problem. Look, today was a disaster. I'm going to be honest. The big problem under Ange Postecoglou, and you are right, is there is no plan B.
Yeah.
Right? This is the way we play. And if you don't like it, you can get snuffed. And that's the reality of what it is, right? If you don't like it, off you pop, because this is the way that I want to play and it will work. The big issue for me is the lack of shooting opportunities, or the lack of players wanting to have a shot.
Yep.
We didn't see a long-range effort until Pape Matar Sarr came on, and then he had two abysmal efforts within the space of 5 minutes from a long way out. And I was sat with two neutral fans who said to me, like, what do you want to happen? Because all you keep doing is simple one-way passes.
Yep.
You're not avoiding the second man, or playing it, past the second player. How are you going to break the lines on a low block without that? And that's the reality.
The thing is, right, and I do agree with you in terms of Arteta, and they gave him an opportunity to rebuild. But one thing that Arsenal have done with Arteta, which Daniel Levy is not going to do with any manager, is really, really back him. They spent 100 million on Declan Rice. They bought in all these players. They bought in Ramsdale for big money, and Arteta decided he wasn't the right person, so he bought in Raya. Do you see what I mean? So there's a big difference. I can't see Daniel Levy being like, well, we bought in Vicario and he's good, but he's not the answer to what we need. So we'll go out and spend more money on another keeper. That's just not going to happen. Also with Arteta, he adapted his system and the way he played against different teams, and he still does it to this day. We go into games, we are so naive in the fact that we play the same way no matter who we're playing. It's like, you can't do that in the best league in the world. You come out today and the arrogance of him to say, I always win it's my daughter. I always win a trophy in my second season, blah, 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 but yeah, all well and good, mate. But at the moment, you're not winning nothing, because the only thing I can say is he has and Johnny, I'm not saying I'm not backing him. I've always backed Dan. I'm just saying I'm losing patience like a lot of fans are. The reason I'm saying I'm losing patience is because of the lack of a plan B. If he had a plan B and a pattern of play that we go up against, for example, Arsenal or Man City, the best team knocking the ball around, and we actually go for the throat and go to win or whatever else, they're going to knock it around us tenfold. You play against teams with a low block and we play the same way. It doesn't make any sense why he won't adapt and why he won't change. It's like he's too stubborn. It's like, it's my way, mate. That's it. Yeah, do you see what I mean? So, like I said, the big difference between Arsenal and Tottenham in this rebuild phase is Arsenal put their money where their mouth is and spent whatever it took to get Arsenal where they are. We won't do that as a club, because that's not how Daniel Levy operates. We are a sustainable club. That's how he likes it. So that's not going to happen. So we're never going to be in that rebuild kind of phase. The players we're bringing in, they're not worldies. That's the reality of it. They're not world class. Arsenal went and signed Declan Rice because they needed him. They went and signed Timber. They went and signed Calafiori. This is all recent. Before that, they signed Zinchenko. They signed Jesus. All under Arteta. They bought in Fabio Vieira. He didn't work. They shipped him out on loan straight away. They bought in Ramsdale for big money. He did work, but they decided they wanted somebody who's better with their feet. So they went and spent more big money on Raya. We don't operate as a club like that. So we're never going to get to that level. And Mikel Arteta will change the way he plays, and won't. And that's what worries me.
Yeah, 100%, mate. No, I completely agree. Look, if you do agree with anything that we're saying or disagree with what we're saying, there is a link in the chat right at the very, very top. Scroll up, and it is there for you to find. Click on that link, put your camera on, and you can join in and have a debate with us.
Yeah, Johnny, jump in on screen, mate, so we can have a proper debate.
Definitely. No. Look, you've completely spun my entire game plan or my entire script out the window, but let's keep chatting away because I like it. But let's talk about Vicario, because he's still a young goalkeeper, right? But there were certain things from the day that he stepped at Spurs that I was concerned over, right? I like the way he is personally. I think he's good at distribution. My big issue with him is within that 6-yard box, right? And that's a problem. It's like, how does he control his box? You watched David Raya today, where there was Son and then Trossard and then Raya, right? All he did was just shoved everybody out the way to try and get some space. The problem is with Vicario is he's too much for my liking as a showman goalkeeper, right? And so what happens is, for the goal that Arsenal score, which, by the way, we've lost 1-0 to our fiercest rivals. And to be honest, probably we're in a rebuild and they're at the pinnacle of their game, right? But we've lost to a very, very simple header. And it wasn't 6 yards. It wasn't 18 yards. It was about 3 yards out, right? This is a catch that any goalkeeper should be making. My big issue with him is he's very, very, very reluctant to come and just collect a ball. Now, I don't understand whether that's just his personality, Dave, or whether that's just, his inability or the fact that he's scared of coming to collect a ball.
I can tell you exactly what happened today with him. First half, Gabriel, if it weren't for poor crosses, he could have had a hat-trick today, with their corner chances and his movement. What happened to Vicario today was in the first half, first of all, he made a couple of good punches. Then he made one where it was a bit, and then he completely missed the ball. So he was coming out for him in the first half. I think what happened with him was the first half, it was going okay until he missed the ball. And then he kind of went in his shell a little bit. And then from corners, he stopped coming to claim it. I'm not being funny, but a ball that is whipped across your 6-yard box with a keeper with his arms in the air is taller than any player jumping.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a difference, That's his job to claim that. His problem is he's a brilliant shot stopper. Excellent shot stopper. He's okay with his feet, but he is weak as piss. And that's the biggest problem.
Is he weak mentally or is he weak physically?
Both. He doesn't command his box. It's like he doesn't have the, you look at keepers of old, for example, the Schmeichels here, even David Seaman, for example, they command that box. They command the respect of their team and the opposition, and they're going to get that ball no matter what. They come out and claim everything they possibly can. That's the big difference. Vicario doesn't do that. He's scared of doing that, or he's scared of making a mistake because of the amount he's made last season. So when he did make a mistake today, it put him back in his shell. And then instead of coming to claim the ball, he did nothing. He does this really annoying thing where he hides behind the opposition players and tries to call for a foul.
Yeah.
He holds on to them like, oh, they're not letting me go. It must be a foul. It's not a foul. You're a goalkeeper. Bully your way through to get that ball and catch the ball. That's literally it. So for me, he's weak mentally and he's weak physically. I don't think he is the solution for us long term. I really don't. I feel like we should have gone for David Raya when we had the chance. I'm not saying he's a terrible keeper, but I don't think he is good enough to command a box enough for us to get back to where we want to be. But then again, we had Hugo Lloris for years and he was similar. He didn't really command his box either.
And he was terrible at kicking.
He was awful, god awful at kicking. But it's one of those difficult ones where, like I said to you, Daniel Levy isn't going to go out and spend 30, 40 million on another goalkeeper because the manager doesn't quite like this one. It will be make do or use Fraser Forster or Brandon Austin.
Yeah. No, I agree. I do agree. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're clicking like as well, because every single like and subscribe that we get is really, really important to us. Last week, we progressed in our subscriber list alone. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And those that watch or listen, on any podcast platform, make sure you are following us as well. There are a few people talking nonsense in the chat, but those of you that are talking good shit, we will talk to you all night long. Right, Dave, let's talk about this for a minute, because we spoke about it very briefly at the start of the show. Arsenal's starting lineup without missing Rice, with missing Odegaard. Do you think that made a huge difference to the game today? I felt like Ange went for a more attacking lineup, and I liked it when I saw it. When I saw Maddison, Kulusevski, both playing those attacking roles and only playing one kind of holding player, Bentancur, really showed his attacking influence on the game. But Spurs really struggled to attack, and retain possession high up the pitch. Do you think that those were losses for Arsenal, or do you think that it made no difference to the game today?
I think it made Arsenal come and play to not lose. Like I said, I think them. It was a simple game plan from Arteta. It was to come in and ensure sit tight, be tight, and make sure they don't lose. One thing you can't slag Arsenal off for is the way they defend. They defend really, really well, and they are quick. When they, if they lose possession, they are back in numbers so fast and back behind the ball so fast. Tottenham struggle to break teams down at the moment. I don't know what it is. I mean, people talk about the Everton game, but Everton are shit. It's like it's going to happen. They conceded 15 goals already this season. So they're shit. So you can't use that.
Like 4 of them were against us, or 3 of them were against us.
That's what I'm saying. You can't use that as a yardstick. Because it's Everton. Our record this season's abysmal. 4 points from 4 games is our worst league start for 9 years. It's not good reading, mate. It's not good reading. But I don't believe that I think, like I said to you, them losing Rice and them losing Odegaard, all it did was make Arteta turn up and not want to lose. So they played very defensively and they played on the counter attack, and it worked at times for them. They were quick on the break. They had a couple of good chances, but being honest, there wasn't that many open chances in the game. It was a pretty end-to-end game without anything major happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, mate, 100%. Like, I think, like, if you look at the first half of football, if you look at it statistically, Arsenal were on top. If you look at it, like, physically and, whereabouts the possession was played, Spurs were on top. And that's the real issue, because we had a little kind of, like, mixed debate on Twitter about kind of whether Spurs had enough chances or didn't. And I felt like in the first half, we had number one, Kulusevski shooting near post, saved by David Raya. Then we had Dominic Solanke, who should have struck on his right foot, decided to try and cut in and got tackled.
He just took too long.
And then we had Dominic Solanke having a header at the far post, which also missed by about 2 millimeters. So for me, the first half doesn't look like, the way the stats make it look like.
No, and Spurs dominated possession, but that's normal. We normally dominate possession. But our problem is creating clear, cut, open chances. It's not something we do. We don't create much. There was one point in the second half when the ball got played across the box and Maddison, I thought, hit it. The ball got played and he tried to play a pass to Solanke next to him. It's like we have to walk the ball into the net. We've got this philosophy now where we've got to walk it in or it's not a good goal. I couldn't give a shit. Just hit it sometimes. Take a shot. You know what I mean? Like, try and make a difference. There was one shot, I see someone in the chat about Timo Werner. Couldn't imagine been worse. I remember must remember in a game. Who was it that had a shot from quite far out? Was it Odegaard? And Werner was offside. He just hit him in the heels. Like, what is he doing there? What is he doing there? So these players aren't the solution, and they shouldn't have been signed in the first place. And this is the biggest problem. So hey, I just see Marlon's just jumped in. I want to
hear let's check in with Marlon, see what's happening. Marlon, how you doing, mate? All right.
How you doing, mate?
You good? How you doing, Dave? How you doing, Luke? Long time no see.
It's been a while, mate.
Give us your kind of like overview on today's game.
Where to start? Having the ball and doing nothing with it means you don't win games. Our front three is a bit disjointed still. Haven't really learnt nothing different from last season. If Son's going to be on the left, it's not going to work out in this system as well, as you can now see. And I don't trust Ange anymore, but I don't want him sacked.
It's interesting that's an interesting statement.
That's exactly how I feel, Marlon. Exactly the same.
Don't trust him anymore. And that look, at the end of the day, I said before this game, if he'd lost to Arsenal, but he lost to a full strength Arsenal, I'd be okay with it. I'd be okay with it to a certain extent, but don't concede a set piece, right? Because that means you haven't learned nothing from last season. And Arsenal this season haven't scored a set piece, right? So it's not like they've been prolific in them. They were prolific in their pre-season friendlies, but they weren't prolific in any of the games this season, right? So all we had to do was not concede a set piece this year against Arsenal. And I said, if he concedes a set piece, right, especially with Rice not playing now, right, and if you listen to a lot of Arsenal fans, Saka's set pieces and some of the set pieces they've had this year have not been great. It's all been about Rice. But then for him to then concede from a set piece and bring on Werner towards the end when we've got no space, I'm looking at it going, Ange, what are you doing? I can't, there's nothing more I can say. When he brought on that and and he didn't trust, what I also didn't like is that Archie Gray and Bergvall, two of the summer signings, didn't even see the pitch. So we're looking at it going, you're trusting the same players that let you down last year. And that just spoke volumes today. Absolute volumes. But it's not, look, before I sit there, I don't want him out. I don't want him gone. It's just that I don't believe in what he's doing at the moment. I don't think he knows.
So what would you like to change under Ange Postecoglou?
So, in all seriousness, I only thought about this the other week actually, and I think what's letting him down at the moment is his coaching staff, right? And what I mean by that is, you look at some of the coaching staff he has; they're not good enough. They're not at elite level, right? He's never worked with any of them before, right? So this is the first time he's worked with them. This is an Ange thing to do. Unfortunately, in the Premier League, you're gonna get to a point where you're gonna get punished for stuff like this. If you haven't got a team like let's be honest, when Pep comes in, Klopp, they always come with their team.
Yeah.
Even Arteta even came with a team, right? And then they work together and they get to know each other. We're so disjointed. Admittedly, we're at the beginning of the project, but I don't even think they're good enough. Like, none of them have a reputation anywhere else. You got Yedniak, who's probably in his first coaching job, and he wasn't even that much good of a footballer. So, and he hasn't got no credentials. Ryan Mason, another one. Unfortunately, he's got too much Tottenham about him. That's the last thing we need right now, right? So I'm kind of in the boat of, unfortunately, your way only works, and the way Ange wants to play, especially in the Premier League, if you've got a level of quality to do it. We don't have that quality, unfortunately, and unfortunately, we're just going to still get a mixed bag results until the club. And I know he's had £400 million suspended. Everyone keeps saying, right? But the club is in turmoil, like with everything they've done since Poch left. This is not. This is what people have to understand. It's not the last year and a bit that Ange has had with fans. It's since Poch left.
Do you think they should have sacked Poch?
No, I was never a fan of them sacking him in the first place. All he needed was to be backed, and it needed to be recycled. That's all that needed to happen. But the Amazon documentary ruined everything. And Levy kind of went, I need this documentary to good. I need someone for Amazon to think. And that's why he wanted to
make it go skyrocket.
Yeah. Jose. And that was the only way to get people to watch it, because let's be honest, Pochettino doesn't have the character for a documentary, right? No. And the results started to turn a little bit, and it was just kind of like he thought, all we needed was a win now manager. And then the philosophy has just been gone for the last how many years, right? But the problem we've got is people are sick and tired of this now. It's on and on and on and on. But what I have to kind of understand in all this is that the emotion right now with Spurs fans is, this is a North London derby, right? And that's 2 in a row that we've lost by set pieces. It's just not. It's like, where do you go from here? Because I'll say this now. I called the set pieces out when the transfer window thing. I said we'll probably end up losing to Newcastle, and I said we'll end up losing to Arsenal by a set piece. If we lose to a set piece, we haven't learned nothing from last year. You want to see improvement year on year. The problem he's got, I think the record is at the moment, in his last 11 games, he's lost 7 of them. It's not great. And if we keep going in this direction, we could be languishing mid-table, which we shouldn't be. Like, we are Tottenham Hotspur. We have good enough. Look, there are good enough players out there, but the problem is the system is not working for half of them. And unfortunately, this is where Ange, and he needs to work out his players, and whether he needs to, like people say, you need to take do you need to take a few yards back for them to work in it? Do you need to change certain personnel? But he doesn't have the players right now to work the system, and it's his wingers that are an issue, the main issue. Because actually, I thought Solanke played well today, right? Which a lot of people
Brennan was terrible,
criticizing him stuff. But Brennan Johnson, right, did not give Timber, right? He did not make Timber turn once, apart from once in the second half. Too late, right? But then what makes it worse is that he keeps Brennan Johnson on the field when he's not having an impact, right? But then he brought on Saturday, and it was kind of the weirdest substitution. You're going, where are you going to play him, right?
I think it was a yellow card thing, wasn't it?
But still, it's like Archie Gray's meant to be the DM, right?
Yeah.
So and then when he brings on Werner, I tell you now, I thought there was going to be some boos. I'm not going to lie, right? But when he brings on Werner, for me, the game is over, right? And you look at today tactically, right? Let's take it in contrast. We tried to play attacking football, couldn't break them down. We had the defense. Arsenal set up in this defensive fashion, which most teams, there's 2 ways to beat Spurs: set pieces, or you play them on the counter attack like Newcastle did, right? And unfortunately, Gary O'Neill said this a couple months back, when he went on Sky Sports and went, this is how you beat Tottenham. You know, everyone's done that blueprint since.
Yeah. Can I just jump on something before we bring Callum and Wes on? Just sell up in the comments talking about Werner and bigging him up so much. I just pulled up Werner's stats in his career. So apart from Leipzig, when he played 127 games and scored 78 goals, he played 95 games for Stuttgart and got 96 games for Stuttgart and got 14 goals. Played 56 times for Chelsea and got 10 goals. He then went back to Leipzig. Again, all right, 35 appearances, 11 goals. But since he's been at Tottenham, he's played 16 games and scored twice. So you can't sit there and say he's too good for us, mate. He doesn't start because shit.
And the worst thing about Werner is, right, he can only play when there's space behind the defender. So today was completely the wrong game for him. Completely the wrong game for him. If he was playing a crap side, right? Let's be honest about it. If we're playing a crap side, then you bring on Werner.
Perfect, yeah.
He's perfect for those games. But he struggled. He what he did, he got the ball once on that left-hand side. He didn't really do anything with it. He gave the ball away and then cost us an attack. And the other one, he puts it right in Ray's arms. That's not good enough, unfortunately, right? Brennan Johnson was exactly the same. And this is the problem. And I'm not going to sit there and say Son was done anything great. I think he had one little bit in the first half. But again, they weren't putting balls in clinical areas. And this was the biggest issue, right? Just put it in the box sometimes. Right, because Solanke's in there now, right? And he did try and cause them as much problems as he did, but unfortunately, you are probably playing with the best two centre-back pairing in the league statistically. It's not going to be pretty.
I think Russ, my co-host on the FPL show, said exactly the same thing. Look, he's an Arsenal fan, and he's spot on. You know, I thought Solanke had Saliba all day long. He outmuscled him consistently, but the problem is it's all right putting crosses in the box, but when the crosses in the box are going over everybody or not beating the first man, what's the point?
Saliba gets a yellow card in about 30 minutes into the game, and yet we never once tried to challenge that. Timber got a yellow card 40 minutes into the game, roughly, right? We didn't ever, all I thought Ange would do is say to Brennan Johnson, take your man on every single time. Take your man on every single time. Try and draw that foul, right? I'm going to come... Sorry, Cal, I'm going to come to Wes quickly on this point because, I know we are tactically, but those things that we require from players in certain moments, especially in a derby game, to try and gain an advantage just didn't happen.
No, and I think we just lacked real quality, I think, in the final third. I think, Marlon kind of summed it up there. The positions in which our wingers were getting into were fairly decent. It was just that end product and that final ball was really lacking, and it just became so frustrating in the ground. Then it's that can we sign a winger that can put a fucking decent ball into the box? Do you know what I mean? Anybody. And then it just got towards the end, we were just hopelessly putting crosses into the box, and they're what's the point? Because there's two absolute meatheads in there that are just going to head everything. And that is literally what Gabriel and Saliba did towards the end of the game. So, yeah, I think, to be fair, for the whole game, I think we actually did okay until Arsenal scored. I don't think we really did enough to potentially go and win the game, but we were definitely in it. But then when we scored, we literally just froze and went, oh, what do we do now? What's our plan? What's our idea? And then there was no real leaders or characters to step up and try and galvanise the team. One thing I'll say about Harry Kane is whenever we conceded, he was always one saying right, look, come on, let's try and get playing.
Let's go again.
None of that today. Son, who's supposed to be our captain, is too busy looking to get the ball, and get it on the centre spot. But it's we still got to wait for Arsenal to finish celebrating yet. So what's the point? I just think it was just one of those final third was just really, really poor today, and it really, really it was just so frustrating to watch.
Is this Timo Werner on a fake YouTube account?
Yeah, I think it's someone grounded you, Dave.
Dave, he wouldn't even be defending himself. So I wouldn't say.
No, I agree. I agree, mate. And Callum, I want to come to you because football manager, extraordinaire. I want to talk about kind of tactics and these kind of things, right? Because when you look at Spurs, right, and you look at Ange Postecoglou, he has a real reluctancy as a manager to cross the ball in. For me, the way I can only imagine it, because I've read a lot about Postecoglou and read his book and other things like that, but the reluctancy to cross is mainly down to the fact that it's wasted balls. So the fact is, if you cross it in and you don't create a good chance from that, it's a waste of possession rather than, if you keep the ball and knock it about at the edge of the box, then at least you're keeping possession and you're controlling the game. The issue that I have massively with this tactic is that when you have inverted wing backs and you lose the ball because the players you have don't have the ability to keep possession, is that then you're massively on the counter attack. Like, how do you sort that out?
It is a difficult one because I am getting so sick and tired with this inverted fullback system, because all the space that we need to have, that we were so good at using in previous seasons under Poch, even under freaking Conte and Mourinho, we could use space. We could go on the outside, and you could see today that you could see Arsenal had the ability to overlap, where Udogie and Porro were going into the midfield. They was using the space that we should have been using, and that then leads on to the part of taking your man on as well. Timber is not match fit, and Ben White has no pace. We had two pacey wingers today, which we should have just been going at them constantly. And when you try and then play a Pep style of football where you try to walk the ball into the box and then try to play an L-shaped pass across it to then have a tap in or an exposed goal, that's all well and good, but you have to have the quality of players to do it as well. And I don't know whether there's a reluctance from our side to do anything, but it is a difficult one because we don't take shots from outside the box, we don't exploit, we take too many touches. Then when we do overplay, we then, like you say, get caught in possession. We've got so many people committed who have committed but done sweet fuck all with that commitment, which then gets us caught on the break. And that's where we give away silly free kicks, have to do last man challenges, have Romero ball watching for 4 goals this year as well, where he's culpable. It's all these multitude of mistakes. And I don't know whether it is Ange saying to him, I don't trust you lot to do this, so you have to do it this way. This is how I want to play, or whether they just ignore what he says. Because I bet there's a chance that they look the best things since sliced bread, whether they're training, and then everything in their mind just goes out their head. And I was having this discussion with my brother earlier, and it's even fucking worse because he's an Arsenal fan. But he just said that literally, when we started pushing Arsenal in the last 10 to 15 minutes, they were shitting themselves. They was dropping deep. They were flustered. They didn't expect it. But every time we did cross the ball, we was putting it in the air. You don't do that when you've got a 6'4" centre back like Saliba, Gabriel, people like that. If you're going to play that, play it across the floor, because at least we've got people who can run onto the ball. That's where Werner can be good, and maybe Selop may be correct that he could be the fucking saviour when it comes to it. If we do play a ball across the floor, I know Dave will probably want to skin me alive for that comment, but it's the fact that only then do we start pushing and doing something when the game's gone. And there's a multitude of things, but inverted fullbacks doesn't work. We don't use space correctly. We're not clinical enough. We don't play the right balls when we're meant to. We was meant to overload the midfield. The problem is we overloaded it too much, where everything was going through the middle straight to their defence. And ultimately, we just strangled the game, where we strangled ourselves in it. We didn't do anything inspirational that you'd think, and probably our chance of being there or thereabouts is showing that we are so far from the team we was 7-8 years ago, and we haven't gone anywhere forward. We've actually just regressed so much, and we're stuck in this rut now where we're just going to be the best of the rest as such, to be honest. And I think Ange could be an unfortunate casualty of that, because I mean, the whole way that we play is just fucked, and I don't know whether it's
Cal,
sorry, quick one, Callum.
Yeah.
Sorry, really quickly on that comment. Do you think then that we overplayed or overperformed in those years, and therefore we have a higher expectation? Or do you just think that it's regressed that much? I'm curious.
I think it's regressed that much. I mean, the whole point of showing how embarrassed Spurs were this week was the stuff with David Pleat. We couldn't even give the poor bastard a fucking room to broadcast his book and all that. I think there's on-field and off-the-field issues and all that. I mean, he's a legend of the club, and we told him, "Oh, we'll get back to you if
there is big problems at the club in terms of, you look at what Romero. Did anyone see Romero's retweet? Anyone seen that?
No.
He had to arrange his own travel back from international duty because Spurs wouldn't. Now, I wanted to ask Marlon.
Mate, I feel sorry for you, lad. Fucking hell.
I wanted to ask you a question, Marlon, very quickly. I said before you boys came on, I was talking about, we were discussing between the difference between being patient, Arsenal being patient with Arteta and letting them do 8th, 5th or whatever else. And my take on it was, that's all well and good, but the difference is that Edu and the Arsenal board put their money where their mouth was. They signed the players that Arteta needed, and if they didn't work, they re-signed another player to take his place. Do you think it's the same that Daniel Levy's never going to change? And I'm a Levy out, always have been. But do you think it's a case of we're never going to achieve this rebuild because he's never going to admit when we make mistakes and never wants to lose money?
No, and do you know what? Look, with Arteta, right, he had an FA Cup behind him. So the board, when he's got an FA Cup, he's won a trophy, we can give him that time. Now, people use Klopp as another example where Liverpool gave him time. But there was a slight difference with Klopp. He got to 3 finals within his first 2 years. He may have lost them, but he was getting to finals, right? So the problem that Spurs will always have is that, so a lot of people go, but he backed Ange in the summer. He spent how much million? But the problem is, it wasn't ever in the right areas. And then it was on young players that need a couple of years before they actually even make it any good. So in theory, we actually signed one first-team player because he's the only one who touched the pitch today. Right, yeah. And then you just have to go back towards the end of last season. These are the same players that went through that bad run, and then you're expecting them to pick up this season, and it's all going to change, right? But we've seen it. Like, look, let's be honest. Since Poch, so Poch wanted a rebuild, right? He got half his rebuild and got sacked. Mourinho wanted defenders, right? And as everyone quotes, he got Joe Rodon, right? Conte, yes, he kicked, he threw his toys at the pram, but he wanted, what's his name, Bastoni, right? But Bastoni wanted assurances from Conte that he wasn't going to be off after his 2 years. So that's another reason. But we didn't put the money either, right? So what you end up getting here is that managers end up just falling out of love with what the club's doing because they never will fully back him, right? And the same thing happened with Poch, but Poch got lucky in the sense of he had the Harry Kanes and he had the next generation coming through, which he could work with. And then obviously we had the fall off of Man City, Arsenal, United, and Liverpool all in one season when Leicester won it, right? So he had that time to build. That's not happening no more. We got Pep Guardiola, right? We don't know how Liverpool are going to end up. We don't know how. Well, Man United are Man United, but the way things are going at the moment, you're just not going to get it with Spurs. Levy's been scarred too many times, right, for when he has put up the money. And we'll go back to the 7 signings when he signed Eriksen, Lamella, and all them, right? Gareth Bale money. So he's never ever been trusted ever since to do that. But the problem you've got is that the problem I find with Levy is he's the constant in this, but it's the people underneath him that he's employing, right? Because Lange this summer, if that's the best that he's going to get, Villa fans were happy when he left, right? Because the good signings that they had, they didn't blame on that Lange. It was someone else that signed them. And yet we've gone out and got him, and this is what we've got for it. So you just have to look, at the end of the day, Spurs right now will never, ever back a manager fully, even when it's going well. Because even Poch was never fully backed in anything he did. And he wanted a massive rebuild, and it was going to hurt, right? But we're still going through it. Poch is now managing the US. So it is what it is now. And I just think at the end of the day, until Levy steps away from the club, right? I don't care if Enoch own it. Until Levy steps away now, we will not see a dramatic change in anywhere, because what's happening is his mentality is still invested in this club, unfortunately, and that's what's happening behind the scenes, right? That David Pleat thing is nothing new. It's nothing new. That's just a catalogue of things that happen inside the club. He doesn't care about them sort of things, and that's the way it is, right? And David Pleat was right about one thing. When you look at the difference between how Arsenal treat their legends and how Spurs do, yeah, it's Daniel Levy, unfortunately, and that's all I can say about it. But at the end of the day, today's not about Daniel Levy. Today is about Ange, right, and his tactics and his substitutions killed him today. Yeah. Absolutely killed him, because even when 1-0 down, it was a set piece, right, and he's going to get questioned about set pieces for the next week, and he's not going to like it. He's going to get irritated, right? And as Luke just said then, right, with regarding putting it in the box, right, my argument against that would be, right, Arsenal did it to us last year. They put a ball in the box, Romero scores an own goal, yeah, at the Emirates, yeah. Again, you throw balls into the box, it causes chaos, right? It doesn't matter who's in there. It causes absolute chaos. And if you put the right ball in, the defender's facing their back to goal, you do not know what's going to happen sometimes. And
Pedro Porro against Liverpool. Porro against Liverpool. Same thing.
You make people feel uncomfortable. So that's the thing. You put people on the back foot, and that's what we don't do. We put ourselves on the fucking back foot because we're just too stuck in our ways. It's sideways passing. It's no exploitation. The worst thing for us today, we did not trouble their back four at all. I mean, we had 15 shots or maybe even 20 shots, 5 on target. They had 7 shots and they still created 2 big chances. We didn't create 1 big chance at all. I mean, fuck me, Raya can't use his feet. At least put something at his feet and all that. He's a good shot stopper. Just do something, throw something down their throats to make an impact. And not once, apart from against Everton this year, have we done anything. And I know we're only 4 games in, but it's the same old shit.
We are only 4 games in, but quickly, Wes. Sorry, Marlon, I'll come back to you. But Wes, you were at the ground today. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts and what were everybody else's thoughts around the game? And also, I need to hear your thoughts on Ange Postecoglou because I've not really heard your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I think, I looked at the lineup and the midfield. I obviously go to the games with my dad, and I said to him, that midfield worries me from a Spurs point of view today, because I said there's no real legs in, there's no real bite in there, and I have a feeling that we were going to get outrun in there. Bearing in mind, Jorginho can't run as well. So yeah, that was my initial fit. Without seeing who Arsenal had in midfield. My fear was that we were just going to get outrun in there. But it was just that feeling and that sense of gutted and frustration. I think within the ground, because it's kind of like this rinse and repeat kind of cycle. I know one of the guys sitting next to me was kind of saying that it felt like the back end of Poch's time at Spurs today, in the sense that we have all the ball and it's all sideways and down the sides and all in front of opposition, but nothing really then able to hurt them, which was, I could sort of see where he was coming from at times. But yeah, I think obviously today it was, like I say, it's just frustrating because it's a derby and you want a little bit. I think you want a little bit of something else when it comes to Derby Day. I think quality can sometimes win you a derby, but it's almost like you got to win the battle first, and then your quality then shines through. And I think Arsenal were definitely there for the taking. I thought first half an hour in particular we were brilliant, but I think our problem is in the first 4 games is that we haven't capitalised on the fact that we're on top. And we haven't scored in those moments. And I think that's what's killing us at the moment, because other teams then create, as Callum mentioned, sort of those big chances, but they're clinical and they take them. And I think that's where we're falling down at the minute. But I think as for Ange, I hear that a lot that he's a really good, motivational speaker in terms of team talks and things like that. And I'm kind of saying to my dad today, how long does that go on for? How long do you become this guy that can roll you up for a game? How long does that last? Is it going to last, a year, 18 months, 2 years before the players become immune to it and it doesn't have the same effect? And I think substitutions today really reactive. as well. Like, why are you waiting to go 1-0 down before you want to make changes? Like, most people in the ground can see that Brennan Johnson was awful and Son was awful. Like, hook them and get other players onto the pitch. But I think the thing for us is, it's that, like, I look at our bench today and I look at Arsenal's bench, and yes, Arsenal's bench had a lot of kids, but they still had the likes of a Jesus and a Sterling to bring on. You're reading this random comment. I've just got.
Oh mate, who has he gone?
Sorry, but yeah, it was like, Sterling and Jesus that can come on and change a game, whether we like it or not. Like, who are we realistically bringing off the bench? Like, we've got Werner, who in a Spurs shirt has been really hit and miss, apart from whatever Selop's watching.
He's watching old Leipzig tapes.
Yeah, but it's like after that we're effectively then relying on kids. So you're relying on teenagers, and yes, they are fantastically wonderful young talents. Not disputing that at all, but we need that player almost to come off the bench and change it. And it's like we're relying on kids. We haven't got that gap or those players in this age bracket of say 22, 23 that can come off the bench and change a game. Like, you look at, I know this is a bit of a ridiculous example, but you look at City's bench yesterday and you think it's fucking disgusting. Like, they've got Bernardo Silva, Doku, Ruben Dias, everything else on the bench. And you're like, Jesus Christ, like, they walk into most teams in the league, if not every team in the league. And this is on City's bench. And yes, they're the benchmark and that's what everybody wants to get to. But yeah, I just think there's things with Ange that need to tweak and need to change. But I don't think as a fan base, we are going to be patient enough to see the fruits of it, because we've become too obsessed with winning trophies, even though we don't really win any anyway.
Yeah.
We're now like, we need to win one. Well, I'm 30 next year. I've seen us win 2 League Cups. Like, so the fact that I've seen that means that those 2 years and those 2 seasons are the anomalies, if you like, because they're the only 2 that I go, oh, we've won something, brilliant, fantastic.
But most of them have been under Levy's ownership, though.
Well, that is a point as well. Whether that's down to the ownership or what's going on the pitch is, I think, a conversation for another day. However, I think as a fan base, we've just got desperate for this. Oh, we need a trophy. We need a trophy. Well, actually, let's just hold fire a minute and let's. We've got somebody in who we, as fans, majority of fans, like and can get behind. We've got a style of play that most fans can relate to. And yes, there's obviously going to need to be some tweaks and changes along the way. That's natural. But let's kind of just ride it out. But I don't think we're going to, unfortunately.
It's a bit of a monkey on Levy's back as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's why he brought in Mourinho and Conte and etc.
And the thing is with that, Dave, is we've brought in win now managers, but we didn't buy win now players.
Yep.
So what was the point in bringing in the win now managers when they haven't got the players to win now? And it's similar in that sense to Everton, in the sense of they've got one manager in, didn't work, so then they went completely the opposite way and got a different manager in, which didn't work, and then they went back to another style. But in this time, all these managers are bringing players in to try and fit their style, and all of a sudden now you've got Everton, as you said earlier, Dave, fucking shit.
Yeah,
right?
they're awful. We can't use it as a yardstick for us, because you can't use it as a yardstick in our season. They're the only team we've beaten. Like, a Sunday League team could beat them at the moment. They're terrible.
Yeah, they are.
And that's the worrying thing. If you look at it as a whole right now, the fact we've only beat Everton, right? Leicester, who came up, who was so worried about their season, we couldn't even beat, right? We ended up getting a draw and we could have lost, right? Newcastle, who everyone says we played well against, still lost. And even Arsenal today, who didn't even get out third gear. That's not the best Arsenal we've seen, and we still lost. The problem is that the next few games as well ain't looking easy, right? Brentford is probably and I say this with a pinch of salt. Brentford is the easiest fixture we have over the next few weeks, right? We've got a trip to Old Trafford coming up, right? We've got a trip to Old Trafford, and we've got a trip to Brighton, right? Who we completely got beat by last year, right? And it's kind of like, actually, where are the next 3 points coming from? And can he survive this? And if he doesn't go out and beat Coventry convincingly on Wednesday, people are going to start questioning Ange because keeps coming out and saying, yes, I win trophies. He's back down a little bit on it today. I win trophies in my second season. But it's like, that's not what we need to hear right now. He needs to come and say, I want to stabilize this club. It was in a crap situation when I came in, right? I just want to get back to where they were, you know, when they were enjoying the football. And that's what I've come in to do. Forget, like you said, Wes, he doesn't need to talk about trophies. We don't, like, if he actually come out and said that, I think that's more realistic and more what he needs to say, right? But I think after the whole Manchester City gate last year, right, regarding I've never been at a club like this, that, and the other. But this is where you've left us. That we got to a game in the season where the season was over, and you want us to help Arsenal. I'm sorry, but that's like, and then you went out and put that team anyway, and they still lost. So who's to blame here? Us. It's not always us. So at the end of the day, his tactics, I can see what he's trying, right? But sometimes you just need to go in a bit of a different directions if you haven't got the players to play it.
You know, it's like putting accountants in a kitchen and asking them to cook a 5-course meal.
Yeah. Right? You look at Pep, right? Pep, look, everyone wants to use the blueprint of Pep, but Pep, right, against West Ham last week was a prime example. There was twice that West Ham could have made it 2-2, right? When he left the two centre-backs exposed. He literally changed it like that. And then they went out and got a third, right? Yeah. We don't do that.
The thing with that, Marlon, is, and everybody talks about this Pep blueprint and how he plays and, you know, the brand of football, right, which has been brilliant over the last sort of 15 years. Man City probably put the most crosses in of any team in the Premier League.
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody talks about this fantastic way and walking the ball into it. Mate, City bombard the box. Yeah. The difference is there's quality on the end of it.
Edison's was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that for me, there was a goal kick today where Van der Ven's got it, and he's trying. They're fucking about with it at the back, and I'm thinking, I can see it because I'm sat behind. I'm thinking, right, you either lay it off to one of the centre backs or just clip it into Solanke. And in the end, we killed ourselves in trying to play out, and I think Arsenal ended up with a throw-in or a corner, but the throw-in was deep inside our half. But I'm saying, like, the amount of times that City set up to play out and they make the pitch really big, etc., and then Edison just goes, fuck it, and twats it up to Haaland. It's ridiculous the amount of times that he actually do that. But they have
can I just butt in here just to pull this up? Sell-off. If you know,
why are we still bringing up these comments?
I'll defend them if they're going to pay me. Like, I don't know who they are, but Johnson's shit. But if you know someone's going to pay me, mate, I'll quite happily sit here and say he's the best ever. So put me in touch with him, will you? Anyway.
Yeah, no, quickly on that one, right? You know, we have got a Carabao Cup or a game up, you know, against Coventry.
Fucking Coventry on Wednesday night. What a load of
in the week
that is.
And, you know, this could be a point in which we, you know,
don't say a turning point. Don't say a fucking turning point.
My biggest issue, you know, and I'm a big advocate for, you know, being positive, and I'm a big advocate for Ange Postecoglou, and I always was. But I also do agree to a certain degree that the lack of crossing is really killing us at the moment. And the lack of balls that are just putting them into the box, which could allow for, you know, do you remember we, you know, earlier on this game today when we struggled to get the ball out of our own box, where we struggled to just get rid of the ball, where balls kept just coming in and it just was at players' feet where they had to just swing a leg at it and try and get rid of it. And the issue for me is that this happens to us a lot. And yet we are reluctant to try and cross balls in. But also what we're reluctant to do, as Wes said, is kick the ball long. Like, you look at how many times the centre-back split, the ball gets played to them, and then all Arsenal do, because it happened twice against Arsenal last season, it happened again today. All they do is press us a lot higher. But what Arsenal are really good at, which, you know, is a killer to us, is they're really good at pressing high, but then when we get out of that press, or when we're really attacking them, they're really quick at getting back into a shape. And that's a real problem with us, is that we're really not good against, you know, or setting up our own low block. Because it doesn't have to be, low block or nothing else. It can be attacking football with a low block in defensive positions, Callum. Because, you know, it doesn't have to be like one or the other, right? It can be a little bit of both. And watching Arsenal today, when they set up in a low block, it felt to me like, oh, well, all they're doing is playing, you know, parking the bus and, you know, trying to see this out. But in reality, all it was just setting traps.
Yeah, that they was playing in reaction to how we was playing. Simple as that. And it kind of links in with Selop. None of what Selop's saying. None of us are defending any of the Spurs players today because they was all shit. Madison, Kulu, Bentancur, Johnson,
Apart from
Son.
Werner.
Yeah, but yeah, fucking Werner. There we go. He's just won the Champions League with us. Fuck
He
me.
just
We're
stood
not even in
offside
it.
and blocked his own player's shot.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So I mean, we're not defending it, and if anything, Arsenal played in reaction to how we was playing. We was not playing any forward balls. We was not playing anything positive. So that's why they could just retract and sit back in their own half and then drop deeper to then make us sort of try and press them. But then it just showed how frail and weak we were. So it's not. It's like Holly said as well. Arsenal had their game plan. They knew how to do it. They knew how to cut it out. And they knew how to react to us because we had no fucking clue. If we had any clue, we'd have put them chances away in the first half. The game would have been done. And happy days, we'd be sitting here celebrating a 4-1 win or something like that. But instead, we played bad. And none of us are advocates for the club or anything like that. We're not fucking paid by the club because if we were, we wouldn't be on the podcast for it.
Not me. They ain't paying me,
I mean,
are they?
oh, come on, Dave's a housewife, so it don't really matter anyway. So it's wonderful. But the whole point of it was that we were bad today. We've been bad against Newcastle. We was bad against Leicester because we've played the same football, which is down to both the manager and the players that are asked to implement that. Ange says what he wants to do. The players then have to act that out on the pitch. If they don't act it out, then it's on both culpable parties. And Arsenal knew how to close us out, shut us down, and stop anything useful. And if we had any ounce of footballing nous about us, we would have been able to get round that. But Arsenal have seen how we played. They've sit there, analysed us, and said that if they go into a low block where they can then hit us forward, then they know how to play and close us down. Newcastle did it the other week. Leicester was just a hit and hope and just using Jamie Vardy, who always fucking scores against us. And the only team that couldn't do it was Everton because they didn't have enough players to even get up from their under-21s to field a full team squad. So it's a multitude of things, and I know I'm ranting and probably going over the same thing, but the whole point was that Arsenal played in reaction to how we didn't play how we should have played. And they just knew how to nullify us. Simple as that. So we're not defending Spurs. We're not defending the club. We're saying it's a shit day. Yes, we move on, but we cannot keep moving on with the same shit going forward, to be honest.
Yes, we move on. 100% we move on because it's time to move on. Look, there are 40 plus people in the chat, so make sure you're getting your comments in, you're getting likes, subscribes, all the rest of it. All good for that. And let's keep chatting away.
Subscribes, by the way, and just asking for a friend.
Yeah, make sure that everybody subscribes, even those people that Wes has been massaging throughout the week. Make sure they're subscribing as well.
Killed me.
If Wes's missus is listening, this is probably not true. I'm not sure, but
is Wes's mum here tonight?
Yeah. Wes's mum's been in.
Can I just pull this up? Peter Haggis talking about being couch experts. It's not we're couch experts, mate. We don't think we're Pep Guardiola. We don't think we're football coaches, apart from Wes. But we are passionate fans who actually want to have a say on our club, which is our right to do so. And you're more than welcome to jump on any time to have yours.
Yeah, that is a good point, actually, because I forgot to mention for a while that the link is at the very, very top of the chat. So if you do think you're a couch expert, tune in.
That's how I got in.
Have your say. And Wes's mum is here, Callum.
Yay!
So, there we go. Let's talk very quickly.
At least you got one fan, Wes. There you go.
Yeah, about commentary midweek, because Dave, looking at a fixture like this, you think this is the time to kind of bring our fan base back together, to get a cup win under our belt. All of those things that basically mean we're going to lose 1-0 away to Coventry. But what are your thoughts?
I think he'll play Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, Mikey Moore. I think he'll play a lot of the youngsters. I think Bergvall should have came on today, but we've stopped talking about Arsenal, so I won't go on about that again. But, I think we'll probably beat them. The youngsters will probably shine, and then we won't see him again for 5 weeks.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Right, boys. I'm gonna kind of swiftly move on because we've got lots to talk about today. But Wes, I'm gonna quickly come to you because both you and Callum are very lucky. Very lucky indeed. And you don't even know why. Because neither of you got your score predictions in for next week's game. And very luckily, you've tuned into tonight's show.
You are so lucky.
Yeah, and so luckily you don't get the forfeit score predictions. But just so we can, end our Arsenal chat, we'll discuss today's score predictions because Callum forgot last week as well. And so Callum ended up with the spinning wheel and he got a 0-0 draw. Wes went for 2-2. Dave and Callum, Winnie also went for 2-2. I went for a 3-1 Spurs win. None of us did anything, got any points. The table does not change. And we leave on Winnie 4, Wes 3, me 1, Dave 1, Callum 1. But
I was at least closest to the bloody result, to be fair, just from the freaking random accumulator. So,
you know what? Throughout the entire game, I was absolutely shitting myself that you would.
Yeah, it's going to be 0-0. So was I.
So, and also the forfeit originally was going to be 1-0 to the opposition, but Dave decided that wasn't fair because Arsenal could beat us 1-0, and luckily that also didn't come in.
Yeah.
So anyway, Callum, let's talk about next weekend's game against Brentford. Pep Guardiola said this week probably one of the best teams he's played against, and they could have been 2 or 3-0 up in that game against them. Do you fear that they're pressing, because their pressing is what makes them superior in this league? Do you think that's probably going to be the most difficult thing for us?
Yeah, I reckon their style is very much pushing front foot football. The only thing that I think is going to be their negativity is they don't really have a focal point for like a focal point striker up the top, and I think Vissa went off injured yesterday as well, so they've probably lost one of their best sources of goals. And I don't think someone like Lewis Potter is there or thereabouts yet as a player to be able to carry him. But yeah, they definitely gave City a game yesterday, so I'm gravely concerned, even if it is at Spurs, to be honest, mate. So there's, if anything, they, us, will probably do something where we lose 3-2 to them. Something like that. We'll have 2-0 lead and we'll become Everton after that.
Do you know what? That would be the worst case scenario, wouldn't it? But
and yet
Marlon,
we do it.
Yeah, Marlon, do you reckon we can get a victory midweek? And also, do you think that would spur us on, excuse the pun, to next weekend against Brentford?
So I look at it and I have to back what I've been saying for the whole of the show. So I'm saying that obviously not much has changed from last season, right? It's still the same relatively. So it depends on what team he puts out against Coventry. I think he'll win. Whether it'll be comfortable or not will be a complete different story. So I think we'll beat Coventry, but it's one of those where it needs to be a convincing win, and half that team needs to be first team players. He can't do what he done against Fulham last year.
Yeah.
Right. Brentford, I think we will win because we're at home, and theoretically they're not a top 10 side or even a top 6, and that's teams that we do well against. So I know they played really well against City yesterday, and they should have probably been about 2 or 3-0 up. But City always start slow after international break, so I'm going to put us down for a win next week as well. But it'll probably be a 1-0, 2-1 kind of scoreline.
Well, good. Don't give us your exact prediction just yet, because we will come back to everyone's predictions. And that is a good segue to let everyone know in the chat that we will be asking for all of your predictions throughout the show. So in about 5 minutes' time, we will come back to you all for your Brentford score predictions. We had a little vote in our group chat today. We decided unanimously that it was going to be league games only for our score predictor table. So we'll only be taking the Brentford score predictions today. But Wes, how do you feel about going into the game after a loss today against Arsenal, next week against Brentford?
Yeah, I think the game against Brentford is going to be really interesting. Obviously, I wouldn't say it's a massively different style in which Brentford play, but they are very much like, right, we're going to play in the opposition half. We're going to get, put balls into the box. I think, as Callum mentioned, Vissa potentially who went off yesterday, is going to be a potentially huge miss for them. up top. I think the relationship he's got with Mbeumo is really, really good. But I would still like to think that we've got enough in there to get a result. I know things in the start of the season hasn't been what we all wanted. But I think it's time for the players to start showing and proving to themselves and to us as fans that there is enough in there to, start getting some results. So yeah, I just think Brentford just lack a little bit of quality, and I think there are obviously weaknesses that we can definitely look to exploit, especially probably in the wider areas, because obviously they play with a back three quite a lot with wing backs. So if we're able to create 2v1 situations out wide and use it properly and put some decent balls into the box, maybe along the floor might not go amiss. I think we could be all right. But obviously they gave us a pretty decent game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last year. So we do need to be wary, because they have got certain individuals that can produce at any given moment.
Definitely, mate. Dave, coming to you quickly about Brentford, but also about FPL, because I know the FPL show wasn't on this week, due to family bereavement, but we'll be back next week as well, won't it?
Yeah, so it's actually money week. So it's week 5 money week. What that basically means is, so we'll be here Wednesday night, 9 p.m. So tune in. FPL week 5 was money week. It's your first opportunity, if you are in our league, to win real money. Rules are simple. Highest scoring team of the week will win money. Doesn't matter whether you're a host, doesn't matter whether you're a watcher. The way it works is no chips to be used, and the highest scoring team will win the money as long as you make contact with the tweet and the Facebook post that I'll put out within 48 hours. If not, it gets passed down the line until somebody claims that money. So tune in Wednesday, 9 p.m. when the lads will be back again. Apologies we weren't there last week. Unfortunately, I had a family bereavement, but we will be back on Wednesday for the all-important money week. But in terms of Brentford, it's really hard for me to talk about Tottenham after we lose, looking forward. And this is just the thing I struggle with, because after a game, I'm despondent. Everyone knows that I'm the angry one of the podcast. I'm the one that rants and raves and goes on. That's why a lot of people ask me to come on their shows, because I talk shit and I don't care, So it's hard for me to be positive and be upbeat. You can't say we played terribly today, but you can't say we lacked any cutting edge, and that worries me. The high line against Mbeumo and Vissa, somebody said it in a comment earlier, is a concern. Wes makes a good point in the fact they do play a back three, so there will be opportunities out on the wings. This guy talks so much nonsense. Honestly, he talks so much shit. But thanks for tuning anyway. I mean, you're getting the views up, so cheers, mate. What worries me with you talking about them playing three at the back is what Tottenham tend to do is with the inverted fullbacks, we all come inside. So provided we don't all come inside and block up that middle of the pitch and actually use the width correctly, then yeah, I think we should win. So. It's like I said, it's hard to be positive about Tottenham after today, but yeah.
Anyway, right, let's get into next week's score predictions, and Marlon, we will ask you for your score predictions as well. So
I should give Winnie's one because he's not here.
Yeah,
that's a forfeit.
Fair enough. It's not, don't worry, people. It's not like I've spent 45 minutes today trying to create a wheel.
Really quickly,
have every possible score prediction on.
Can I just answer this quickly, Luke?
Well, Luke, get a fucking life then.
Tom, just quickly about the FPL. It's the highest scoring week. So it doesn't matter whether you're 109th in the league. If you score highest that week, you win the money.
I might be with a chance. Yeah.
Sorry, go on, carry on.
Oh, but without chips, though, so you can't use your wild card.
No wild card, no free hit.
I wouldn't know how to use that anyway, so I'm all right.
You sound like Callum last year. He couldn't remember his password.
I ain't even fucking bothered doing it this year. It was that shit. So, I mean, I'm all right.
Just tune in Wednesdays, 9 p.m, Callum. You can watch it and you can learn some tips for next season, mate.
Well, no, instead I'll just end up covering you fucking
yeah, exactly.
Don't turn up. So, I mean, yeah, fuck off. I've got better stuff to be doing. I've got a Premier League show I'm doing on a Wednesday, even though I've cancelled it this week.
Right. Anyway, let's get into our Brentford score predictions. I was really, thinking about this score today because I decided after the game, and
Where are these agencies? Can I get a job? Oh, seriously, I want a job if they're paying money for people to do this.
I thought you just wanted a job in general, Dave. So, I mean,
I've got a job, mate.
housewife
Anyway.
don't count.
right. Anyway, so I've gone for 2-1 Spurs. You know me, can't go for anything else but a Spurs win. So I've gone for a 2-1 Spurs win. There is 33 people currently watching this show. So make sure that every single, I want to see 33 different score predictions.
Is Winnie
And I want
scored
to see
back
it
to the
now.
wheel now?
So get your score predictions in the chat and we'll discuss them all. So I've gone for 2-1 Spurs. Wes, you're also top of my screen. So I'm going to go for you next. What are you going for?
I am going to join you, Luke, I have to say, in a 2-1 Spurs win.
Oof, he's copying. He's copying me. He's concerned, I think. I don't know what's happening here. Dave has lost control.
Bobbin, I'm not even touching it, mate. My hands are up. It's Callum, I think.
Yeah, we've got Jay, who's also gone for a 2-1 Spurs win. Johnny D has gone my classic 2-2 in action again. Matty has gone for a 4-3 Brentford win. Not sure why. Matty's new to the channel, so we'll have to go easy on him. But Matty, calm down on those Spurs losses. Dave, what are you going for?
Fucking, I hate doing this after we lose. I can never ever put us to lose. I don't care who we're playing. I just doesn't have it in me. That's why I'll never win this league. So I'm going for a 2-0 Spurs win.
Oof.
I think my dad's gone 3-1 Spurs as well.
Yeah, he has. Love that. Jay said it was between 1-1 or 2-2.
And then he's gone 2-1.
That is between those scores, I suppose. Callum, what are you going for?
I'll have to give it 3-2 Spurs.
Jesus. 3-2 Spurs?
Well, I just hope we can bloody score, to be honest.
And
just...
no offense to Marlon, right? He's been lovely having Marlon on, but thank God he's gone because now it's time for my wheel.
So he's been working on this.
Oh, you
Spin.
Right, let's try it out. Hold on. I had to change to that for a second. We're now going to try and attempt to get Winnie's score via the wheel. Now,
we need the Michael McIntyre.
Can everybody see the wheel?
We can see the wheel.
Yeah, we need the wheel's music.
The wanky wheel.
Spin the wheel. Spin the wheel. Here we go. Oh, wait. Oh no.
It's all gone wrong.
Oh, you freaking mug.
It's probably been in the pub all day. We'll try again. The wheel's back.
Woo! Up the wheel.
Here we go. So Winnie is, as he wasn't here,
I bet it's a great score.
For 5-0 Spurs.
Fucking 5-0.
Oh, blimey.
Well, that ain't happening.
5-0 Spurs, Winnie's gone for, and the wheel will continue any time that the host has decided not to put their scores in before the start of the show. Right, I'm trying to read some of these comments without putting them on. Matty said, I feel it with the end to end, and I bet Romero, Van der Ven, and Porro are our only goal scorers, but I think ultimately we will die on the counter.
Mate, we need to get you on, mate. You're as positive as I am.
Oh, yeah, positivity is key in the Matty Kushner household. Anyway, I've kind of run out of things to say, and kind of that draws us all to a massive close. But Stellop, thank you very, very, very much for tuning in.
Yeah, tell him, come back every week. Full of knowledge. Sorry,
yeah, important.
Timo, come back next week.
Important to us hitting monetization. So, watch all the way through because we really do enjoy it. But, Dave, I'll come to you first. Thank you very, very much for coming on again. How can everyone find you and talk to us about FPL?
You'll find me here nearly every week. Obviously, Park Lane Podcast is where it all began. So I will always be here. And also on Wednesday nights for the Park Lane podcast spin-off, which is Fat Pod Lads, FPL Extra Time, where we talk about FPL. We give you tips and tricks and, from some very good players in FPL. I'm not saying I'm one of them, but a couple of my mates are very, very good. This week is money week again. So first chance to win real money. So if you are in our FPL league, or if you're not in our FPL league, join it now, because you can still win the money if you join now. I'm sure Luke will put the link up on the screen, the code up on the screen. Week 5, the way it works, it is simple. It is the highest scoring team, not the top placed team. So the highest scoring team will win the money. That team cannot use any chips, cannot use any advantage at all. It's just straight picks. But yeah, I'll be there Wednesday at 9:00, and I'll be back here next Sunday ranting about Spurs. And I cannot wait to see Selop again.
Amazing.
Follow me on Twitter, Selop, at Park Lane Pod Dave, and we'll carry this on. I'll quite enjoy it.
Last week, I used my wild card, and this week I made no subs whatsoever. So this week I've got 2 subs I can make, and I'm going for that money league. So I want that money in my wallet. But Callum, you're not in FPL, but you are still bottom of the Score Predictor League. How can everybody find you?
As always, mate, Callum Subs 97 on Twitter, and I'm so glad I'm not in FPL, and I will always be the bottom of that table, because I really don't give a flying fuck what happens whatsoever. And at the end of the day, I may be here next weekend. It depends if I can get myself free or not, as always. So we'll see.
We are waiting for you to do a full show, to be fair, but you're just lucky that you turned up, so you didn't get a double wheel spin.
I might just turn up at the end of each show just so I don't get the forfeit.
Yeah. It's not a bad shout. We should actually make people do real forfeits, and then that might be another reason people to actually show up for the show. Anyway, Wesley, somebody who did show proper commitment today, went to the game, got home, and still turned up for the show. How can everyone find you?
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when we have a defeat in the manner in which we do, and I get to come home early. But no, people can find me at Twitter's on at Wezo10 is the unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account, as everybody knows by now. Instagram's at Wezo32. Anything football coaching related is at CoForMK. And I do some little football content videos as well. So at WM32 Football on socials. For that as well. And also I am sometimes on the Hotspur Huddle with Holly on a Wednesday night as well. Don't think we'll be having a show this week, 'cause obviously we are playing the Mighty Cov at the CBS. But yeah, that's where everybody can find me usually.
And my favourite Spurs player is Van der Ven, by the way.
Amazing, mate. So honestly,
yeah, we love having you, Wes, mate.
Thank you.
And Callum, obviously.
Yeah, and Callum.
But to be fair, Callum's got zero excuse, because he didn't go all the way to the Spurs ground and then come home and then still tune in. But
you are here away this weekend, and then ended up didn't go in anywhere. So yeah,
fair enough. Positivity. Moving on to next week, we'll have 2 games to talk about. We'll have the Brentford game and also the Coventry game in midweek. Thank you to every single person that tuned in this week, because this show has been absolutely massive. Does it take Spurs to lose a North London derby for our show to get massive? Yes, it does, but we don't care. Park Lane Podcast is the place to be. Thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. And we will see you next week, 7 p.m, for a new Park Lane Podcast. But you can also tune in to Dave and his friends on Fat Pod Lads. I can't tune in because I'm not fat enough, but I will do when I can. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. You can see Dave Wednesday night at 9 p.m. And as we do always on this show, a massive come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.